For the first time in American history, a former president is in court, in criminal court, facing a whole bunch of charges, 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. This is the hush money trial, which, as we have laid out over recent weeks, is about more than just that. But the developments are already flooding in. We're on the first day of this thing. We've got weeks to go and a lot is already happening. So first of all, and almost instantaneously, the judge picked up Donald Trump's motion to remove him from the case, that he would have to recuse because he's biased or whatever, and he rejected that. He didn't even really provide that much of an argument. He just said that they didn't provide much of an argument for why he should recuse, so he will not. So the judge is staying. No real shocker there, but a lot of other things going on. Some of it good for Trump, some of it bad for Trump. So first of all, we expect, and this will probably be happening while we're live here, they're really pushing on consequences for Donald Trump, possibly fines for the witness intimidation that he's been engaged in over the past few days, attacking both Michael Cohen as well as Stormy Daniels. That's a violation of the gag order. And we know that Trump knows that because he can't go a day without posting about how he's gagged. So he knows that he's gagged and he's violating that gag order. So perhaps there will be consequences for that. On Saturday, by the way, he called Michael Cohen a disgraced attorney and felon, which is definitely attacking a witness. You can't do that in this case. And Stormy Daniels was attacked as well. But that said, before we get into the discussion, I do want to give you, because you're probably, if you're on Truth Social, you probably think this judge is totally biased against Trump. Well, not necessarily. Because the judge also ruled that he's denying the prosecutor's request to introduce other sexual assault allegations against Trump, calling them, quote, complete rumors, complete gossip, completely hearsay. I don't think that that is necessarily a fair way to describe all of these many accusations, to say that they're complete hearsay. But regardless, it's not going to be a part of the trial. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Listen, in order for the Damage Report to keep on going, we need viewers like you to become a member on YouTube. Can you click the join button on YouTube today? Thank you. The prosecutors are mad about that because being able to describe the many allegations that were coming against him was part of what seemed like the prosecutor's strategy to show that Trump was worried about losing votes over this, that there had already been stuff like this in the news, and he wouldn't necessarily want more of it out there, which sort of gets to the motivation of doing the hush money payments and then hiding the payments. So this goes beyond just now there won't be this evidence. It hurts the case of the prosecutors in trying to describe why it is that Donald Trump might have done what he's alleged to have done. And I want to throw out one other good development, I guess, for Donald Trump. So the judge said that jurors can be told about Trump's past affair with a Playboy model. I think it's a reference to Karen McDougal, but not that Donald Trump's wife was pregnant at the time of the allegation.
Okay.
That detail, he said, was prejudicial, although he said it was possible his thinking on that could change as other evidence is introduced. They said that this would poison the jury against the defendant. The things Trump did and when he did them would poison a jury against him, so they can't hear it? Okay, that seems weird to me. I feel like if this is a thing that happened and there's good evidence of it, they should know about it. But this is another thing where, again, things are kind of being slanted in Donald Trump's favor. Francesca, what do you think?
I mean, I'm just reminded of the ways that when an unarmed black teenager is murdered by police, how we're supposed to focus on their grades and whether or not they shoplifted candy at any point. Like, I mean, this is the level, right? Like, you're thinking about Michael Brown and things like that, or anyone who's been killed at the hands of police. We go into their character, we talk, prosecutors bring up everything about them. And yet this is a detail of Trump's life, his history of affairs, his history of, I mean, it's not gossip. It is provable and he was found guilty in court of sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll. So yeah, you're absolutely right. This judge seems pretty damn lenient. The only thing that I will say in the judge's favor, and maybe if it clarifies things for the jury, is that this trial isn't really about whether you have affairs or whether your wife was pregnant at the time that you had the affair. It is about the machinations, the money behind when you tried to pay off this person to keep them quiet about that affair. And that was campaign finance, fraud. That's exactly what that is. That's the crime there. The crime isn't cheating on your wife with a porn star, right? A wonderful Very talented. I'm sorry. I just want to say, like, Stormy Daniels is much more than a porn star. Like, let's put that out there.
Okay, well,
and it's hard to be a porn star. Wait. Also hard to be a porn star. Thank you. You can continue.
Yes, exactly. And let that be entered into evidence. In any event, I'm gonna throw out just one little twist potentially. Because look, in terms of characterizing Donald Trump, not being able to tell the jury, who I'm gonna guess knows that she was pregnant at the time anyway, would seem to help Trump. But is it possible that this actually hurts Trump legally? For a reason which I will now describe, which is there are a couple of potential explanations as to why Donald Trump did what he's alleged to have done, if he did the hush money payments, okay? There is to influence the election, okay, because he's worried about losing votes. I will refer to that theory as the actual one. That's really what he did. But then there's another, which you could make the case for, which is it's not about affecting the election. It's about making it so that Melania doesn't find out. Now, it could be if the jury knew about the pregnancy, then that makes it even worse. And thus you'd be more motivated to do it just so she didn't find out. But they're not gonna find that out. So maybe this undercuts a potential alternative explanation as to why he did the hush money payments in the first place. Right. And why he went to such extrajudicial lengths to hide them. But now that's gone. That's not a part of the trial. And will he potentially come to rue that decision? I don't know, we'll find out. I will also say, and we're gonna continue on, but there's live stuff coming in, which is Trump could potentially be fined for the gag order violations, $1,000 per post, which seems like nothing. What's even the point of that? We'll find that out a little bit later on today. And then there's an amazing detail about Donald Trump that we'll get to in just one sec. But I wanna give you a couple of the other updates because again, there are many. So this one works against Donald Trump, and that is that lawyers for the former, basically they wanted to change the questionnaire that's going to be asked of prospective jurors, of which there are apparently 500. So this could take a while. Lawyers for Trump had argued against asking jurors whether they'd ever worked or volunteered for Trump's campaign or affiliated groups. Yeah, if I was a lawyer for Trump, I also wouldn't want that to be one of the questions, but obviously that needs to be one of the questions. If you volunteered for Donald Trump, the idea that you could be a juror on this seems like madness, but it's the exact sort of madness that he wants. And in terms of how Trump is taking all of these updates or whatever, I don't think we have this as a graphic, but at one point on the live news tracker on the New York Times, Maggie Haberman had noted, Trump appears to be sleeping. His head keeps drooping down and his mouth goes slack, which is kind of how he looks when he's awake in his defense, but also not a great look for the guy who wants to run against a guy he's calling Sleepy Joe. But anyway, he eventually did wake up and that's good. Also, Trump is apparently going to be allowed to be present for the proceedings. It seems like even the potential jury stuff, but if he acts out, if he tries to bias the jurors, he could get in trouble, and that potentially includes being sent to jail. I have a feeling that will not happen regardless of what he does. But the guy who's falling asleep we know he's had outbursts in the past in the Eugene Carroll trial. So it's not impossible that he could do that again, Francesca.
Yeah, there were a lot of, I think, fists slamming, a lot of like fooies, I think was the proper term that he used, something like that. There was fooies and uggagas, I can't remember exactly. I love that he's falling asleep. That's just very on brand for an elderly fascist. I do think that having the jury there will pep him up. He loves an audience.
Yeah.
I'm reminded, I feel like Johnny Depp during his Amber Heard trial was playing to the jury. He was like, you want me to do a little Jack Sparrow swagger? I think we're gonna see that. But Johnny Depp was more let me wear cool colored, Armani glasses. And Trump's just let me look like an orange that you left in the sun in your car for a really long time.
On Mercury. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.